It's god damn it. I just remembered. It has very phallic gnome imagery on the handle.
It has 2 gnomes boning embroidered into the handle.
Phallic gnome imagery. Actually, I regret calling this podcast Monsters and Multiclass when we could have gone with phallic gnome imagery.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your weekly Dungeons and Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bordigal.
I'm Will Meldon.
And we'll be hanging out with you for the next hour to talk about anything and everything D&D related. This week we'll be looking at the Barbarian Druid multiclass, and then later on the Froghemoth from Volo's Guide to Monsters, page 145. So pull up a chair and listen up.
All right, so today, again, we're going to be talking about the Barbarian and the Druid. The Barbarian is a very melee-based attacker. Its main class feature is its rage ability, whereas a Druid is a full spellcaster, very nature-based, and its main feature that sets it apart from other spellcasters is that it can wild shape, which is turning into random animals of certain challenge ratings. So to start this off, Kevin, what are your thoughts on the Barbarian Druid multiclass?
So from a role-playing perspective, this is almost too easy. Like, it fits so well. The fluff of the Barbarian is, most of it, they're like tribes people living out in the wilderness and surviving out there. And then one of those being a Druid makes perfect sense. So I like the idea of, I came up with some actually really detailed backstory ideas that are not that. So that's what my focus is going to be on.
Great.
Mechanically, I don't really know. I hope you guys carry me.
I've got some things. Will?
Honestly, this is T-Ball. It's just like Kevin said, this is a very easy to justify class. Barbarians, by their very nature, if they have any kind of intellectual basis, fall into the Druid archetype. Mm-hmm. And even just like briefly mentioning mechanics, we're looking at their wild shape, which can be raged through.
Yeah, that's going to be very important.
A raging bear that, you kill it, and guess what you get? You get a barbarian at the end. Yeah. That's a terrible prize for defeating the monster, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a very important thing to just remember throughout the entirety of this podcast. Barbarians' rage can be done before they go into the wild shape. I actually don't think there's any reason they can't do it in wild shape.
With wild shape, it says they can't cast spells. It's not a spell.
Exactly. It's just a mode they enter into. So those two main class features synergize very well.
Yeah, pretty much actually every single barbarian, not every, almost all barbarian traits can be used in wild shape.
Correct, because
reckless attack, the resistance for like the bear totem barbarian where they get resistance to all damage. That's just insane.
Yep, very much so.
The other thing to note is that the barbarian almost apes the druid in a way with his, bear totems, hawk totems. He pretends to be an animal with his characteristics. Now he can actually be one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's easy. It's perfect.
Right. The stat crossover also works out pretty well. Barbarians require 13 strength. Druids require 13 wisdom. There's not really any complications there.
No. It's, as we've talked about before, we like wisdom. It's a good stat. It's any character's going to benefit from it.
Definitely.
No issues there.
All right, so RP-wise, as we said, it's really simple. You can just straight up say, I want to be a barbarian and a druid, and nobody's going to question that. Right. Kevin, you've got some interesting things. What do you got?
Yeah, so I tried to make it a little more interesting than just the default. And a lot of times with some of these, we were like grasping at straws or just kind of melding together these even general concepts. Since this one is so established, I kind of went into more detail with it. It was actually kind of fun. I might do this more going forward. So one where you start out as a druid. You are a citizen of a city that's very industrialized. They've grown quickly, and they're kind of destroying nature around them.
Okay.
They're tearing down forests to build into it, blocking and damming rivers, putting smog and pollution into the air. And as nature does, in a kind of sense, it fights back, and I mean, not necessarily like some intelligent entity doing it. It just get my mic stand. Lost my train of thought too. Choo choo.
So Ted Kaczynski.
No. That's not really where this is
We're not going with that.
No.
So you've got a
Yeah.
druid in an industrial society, and nature's fighting back at this push towards civilization.
Yeah, it's like the smog and the pollution causes weird weather patterns that are fucking with their crops. They're damming rivers, which later on in the rainy season causes floods and wipes out areas of the city. And you're displacing beasts and powerful wild animals that find themselves in the city and terrorizing people, stuff like that. So it's becoming a real problem. So they try and put this kind of almost this task force in place of druids who they kind of bill it as, hey, come and help us live more in tune with nature. And they are seen, they're put on a pedestal. They're seen as heroes. They're given the good life. Everything is taken care of. Everybody knows their name because they're going to save the city and do all this great stuff. And they're dedicating their lives to doing this. So they're trained in the way of druids to better understand nature and all that. But it turns out the powers that be, they're not really trying to live in tune with nature. They're trying to control and dominate it. And the idea is these druids who have been given this pampered life, once they actually kind of figure that out, they've been drawn in by the good life. They're not going to give that up for their original ideals, and they'll get on board. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll help you, the city, control everything around it, fuck nature and all that, just let us keep living this life we're living. But your scrappy little upstart PC, of course, is not going for that, because you're a PC, you're stubborn little shits. It's how it seems to work, and they rebel against it. But every members of the task force that they worked with and grew up with and gained in power with is fighting against them. And it seems this entire city turns on them. Their name is tarnished. They're pretty much put out there as being villains and terrible and just trying to destroy the city. And everybody they turns against them. And that ignites this primal rage in them, where they essentially lose it. They leave the city. It depends how you want to play. You could have them, they kind of go on a rampage on the way out, uncontrolled or not. I don't know. It's up to you. But they leave this, abandon everything, go out into this world. And so they have all this druid abilities, but they're also kind of scarred as a person now. They have this anger and this rage for what happened to them and kind of what they helped do and weren't smart enough to realize it, and everyone betrayed them, which adds to this barbarian level going up. This kind of, they tap into this rage, and now they travel the world trying to do the best they can for nature, trying to undo what they've done and also trying to get control of this rage, or maybe they accept this as part of them.
That's great.
Yeah,
honestly,
right?
I'm blown away. That's really good.
You really are easy to blow away. But it's a great observation of like an eco-aristocracy where you elevate this ecological value to the point where it no longer means anything. It's just signaling that I care about nature. And that's what society rewards. And so you lose it when you realize that these people aren't for saving the whales. They're for saving society. And also we need a few whales. That's like a really great character concept for a chaotic good. I hate that people aren't committed to this kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it brings up a lot of really interesting takes when you get into other cities. Say, at this point, it's kind of assumed that the original place you come from isn't going to be very welcoming of you.
Right.
So you're kind of ostracized from your original homelands. You're traveling around. Maybe you find an adventuring party. It's expected. And then you get into places and just, I feel like it'd be a very big focus of like your character where you get in, you're like, well, how do they treat nature?
Right.
And that's a really ambiguous way to say it, but
Yeah.
is this like a very industrial city? In which case, you're probably going to be very unfriendly to a lot of the people you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you go into a small village that's trying to live off the land and understands the idea of gotta put in what you take out, you're going to be a lot friendlier, willing to help. It's very, very wide character.
Yeah, a lot
Breath
you could
here.
do with it. A lot of little details you could change to fit with what you want.
So we don't do this a lot. We did
Agree?
this last episode. No, we never agree. First off, because you're all wrong. But let's look at a racial aspect of this. Like, I think a great observation would be the dwarves always were a more sequestered race. And sequestered, they were fine. You know, you can run those forges in the mountains. But when they found out they could make more money in the cities, I could see them taking that too far.
Yeah.
I can see, like, especially a dwarf barbarian rogue type rejecting his people's ideals because when introduced to nature, they ruin it. So,
Right.
you know, we got dwarves, we got elves. It could also be a very good role for this. Humans, they don't have a big stake in this kind of thing. Like,
No.
as a race, but I'm wondering what you guys think of races in this particular setup.
I mean, first one that always comes to mind is going to be wood elf. They're a very nature-based elf type. I mean, they live in the woods. So by the way that you were describing it, it sounds like they're pulling in druids from outside of the city originally.
Possibly, or individuals in the city who have shown promise for
Right,
that.
right. So, I mean, wood elves are, of course, going to be very in tune with taking care of nature. I mean, you could even go with the turtle. I know that sounds kind of strange, but like they fit along that line of really both barbarian and druid, just from their stat block and as well as their history. They're very in tune with nature, which is, it's not a UA that is officially released, the turtle.
Yeah, it is.
Just in its own separate thing. What other? I mean, really, I feel like
Frolbogs would
yes,
be a unbelievably
fitting.
fitting thing.
Yeah,
It's
very.
just ridiculous how the Frolbog like kind of idealizes this idea.
Yeah,
It really hates the destruction of nature.
Mhm.
Right.
But you know, any kind of non-standard PC race is a really good fit for this.
yeah,
Also, the Furbog has 2 wisdom and 1 strength.
yeah, which
Which
is
is-
perfect fit.
Yeah, this is a ridiculously Frolbog class. This is what I would expect a Frolbog to eventually do after living in a city for a few
Right.
months.
Just lose his
or
shit.
you could also just, a human would work.
Yeah, of
Because
course,
you could
of
kind of
course.
put whatever. They're kind of blank slates within the D&D world.
How long do furbolgs live for? I know it's really specific, but you've got it
don't
up
think
already.
it's-
Yeah. Or reaches adulthood around 30, and the oldest of them can live for 500 years.
Perfect. Okay, so I was thinking that a reason why I would kind of stray away from humans is, I mean, kind of something we see in our day to day. We don't live long enough to really see the consequences of these actions. Whereas something that's living for 500 years, that's going to see a lot of shit. And it's going to see how, oh, we built up this city and didn't take care of the surrounding area. We let things get out of hand. And what a surprise, like I knew 200 years ago, problems happened.
Right.
You know, so 70 years to a human, super long time. To them, meh. So I really like that as a race idea.
It also fits very well with the Frolbog stereotypical niceness.
Mm-hmm.
They really are supposed to be a very nice race, but that ends, you know, when you start destroying the forests,
Right.
start polluting the rivers. I can see a Frolbog just flying off the handle and eventually be like, no, I will not stand by while you do this. I'm not going to support you for economic gain while you destroy the things I've loved for 300 years.
Right. Right, that's really good.
Thanks. Yeah, it's one possible issue, though. That would be hard characters to start at level 1. Because that's very much backstory stuff. That would be hard to fit into a campaign.
Kind
That
of.
would be like you come in at level 5 and you're Druid 4, Barbarian 1.
Well, how you were describing it, where they are druids, it's expected that they are druids. They're brought in as druids, and then they leave with this barbarous rage. I would actually start it off with level 1 druid, and then when you want to take barbarian, that's you starting to understand the rage that you've already been through. So
Okay.
being able to actually hone it instead of just fly off the handles.
Okay, I
so
can see that.
It does play off as like just a backstory thing. Like one time you went into this crazy rage. What level do you get rage at? Is that 1?
Pretty sure it's 1.
Okay, that's what I figured. So I like to think that the idea of the rage feature is you honing the rage, whereas before it's going to be just you flying off the handles when it's not appropriate.
Yeah, no, I will always support that on a barbarian. A lot of people shit on the barbarian for basicness. It really isn't about being mad and angry and smashing stuff. It's about doing those things in a very specific, controlled way.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
mastery of rage. It's not just rage.
Right, exactly. So I think that'd be actually a pretty good class to take from your specific thing when you want to.
Yeah, that's fair. And then initially, also, I was thinking it would kind of pigeonhole you into the Berserker, because it's all about your rage and all that. But it doesn't have to. You could play it like the
Totem.
Yeah, Totem Warrior, where so you're embodying the bear, the wolf, or the eagle, which are all hunters, and so it's kind of almost like you're realizing, all right, you accept this rage you have, you internalize it, you wield it and direct it to where you want to go. And as you actually get more and more into it, then nature and of your druid comes in, and you can actually embody the rage of a bear, the rage of a wolf.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that.
Kind of mesh them together.
Right. I think one thing that I'd take away from this is I would be a lot more specific with the wild shape I turn into as a druid. It's kind of implied that your barbarian totems, you're going to stick to that path. It says you have the ability to take bear at this level and then wolf later on. But it really is kind of stressed that you're probably going to stick with one of these. So I think that actually be kind of nice, where not only are you the bear totem, but also you mainly turn into a bear, and you just kind of level up your bear as the challenge rating gets higher. Because that is a thing. I mean, you can start at black bear and then move on to brown bear and whatever else.
Polar bear.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that works out.
Dire bear is a thing. And
Astral bear.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like the flavor of this, because the idea of a druid kind of turning into a bear, fucking shit up, being a badass bear. When they go down, they come back out just as vicious as the bear that was just lost.
I think they would still be raging, too.
Yes.
They would still be raging. This is the beauty of it.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a hard to kill class combination.
Especially if you start to go down the line of no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Conjuring with Circle of the Shepherd. Never mind.
No, okay.
Yep.
I say if you go down the totem one, you take the
get resistance.
bear thing. Yeah, resistance to all damage while raging, which applies in your wild shape.
Yep.
And then if the wild shape goes to 0, you just revert back to your normal form with whatever health you have beforehand, plus carryover. But
I mean, this is a lot simpler compared to the entire society that a druid is brought into. But even just being raised by bears, which is like a lot of times comes up as a druid.
I don't think anybody's ever been raised by bears.
That's where it's funny. You hear raised by wolves all the time. Why not bears?
All right.
This is down the sillier route. I'm not going to argue that. But, you're raised by bears. You go down the bear totem. You always turn into bears. Exact same class features with a less heavy tone, which I would say normally we'd stray away from, but I could see a lot of people not wanting to go down this entire, there's a society that's destroying nature. And it's like, whoa, that's too much. I just want to be raised by bears. Great. Here you go.
would they speak?
Up to you, man.
Do bears speak?
It doesn't say.
No, they can speak. You'd just be like, you'd have a proclivity towards berries and salmon,
Which I already do.
I love berries. I love salmon.
Great. One of my favorite
Great
fish.
meat, great fruit.
Yeah.
I cannot stress enough that foraging is a good
Salmon is
lifestyle.
overrated.
Salmon is not overrated. Kevin
do you
does
mean?
not know what he's talking
What do
about.
you mean salmon's overrated?
I don't like salmon.
It's one of the more meatier fishes. I really
I know.
appreciate
I don't
that.
like it
Every
at all.
time I hear Kevin talk about salmon, I get mad.
Are you talking about obviously you've tried both
doesn't
raw
matter.
salmon and cooked salmon.
Yes. Yeah, it's sushi, that's fine.
Okay.
Cooked salmon, like a fillet of salmon. And I've had nice salmon. Like I've been to Alaska and have eaten salmon that they caught in the river 2 days or that morning. I still don't like it.
Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you're wrong, but okay. It's the best fish.
I think it's one of the better fish. What's your favorite fish?
I like the heavier, oily fish.
So you like the fishy flavor?
No, I don't. That's the problem with salmon. I think it has such a strong fishy flavor.
All right. So you like
halibut's good,
Halibut?
monkfish,
Oh.
flounder,
Okay.
That is weird. You're a weird guy.
whatever.
I feel like it's the steak of fish.
Yeah, it is the
Welcome
steak of
to
fish.
Monsters and Fish Talk.
We're big fish aficionados here.
Apparently.
Aficionados.
Yes. Cleveland, Ohio, all that
I
great
regret
lake area
that.
fish.
No, we actually do get really good fish here.
Yeah, we do.
What's
Lake
our
Erie fish.
walleye?
Walleye is a big
Is
one.
the big one?
Perch.
I really like walleye. I mean, like for a cheap fish.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like...
Whitefish is whatever.
Right.
But Kevin's like here, like shilling for whitefish. When we're offering the steak of fish, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm not a big fan of the steak." The steak of fish. What's your favorite kind of steak?
Halibut's more expensive than
I
salmon.
like ground beef. That's Kevin right now.
Salmon helper.
Salmon helper.
Grind up some salmon, mix it in with some macaroni and cheese.
Oh, yeah. Oof. Kraft mac and cheese, best mac and cheese. Getting back on topic.
Oh, we had a topic?
We have this bear guy who loves salmon and berries because
Actually-
he is a red-pilled individual who understands reality.
We've never... I wish there was more of an ability to have a druid that focuses on oceanic life.
That is an extremely prescient point. They do. I'm actually surprised they did not introduce this with the Mariner style UA. You got your Storm Sorcerer.
Right,
You got
right.
your fighter that doesn't sink is essentially the best way to put it. But you did not get a druid. You
No.
did not get it. And I think there is a flexibility in the class that kind of makes up for that, and that you can be an ocean druid.
But not until like a certain level.
You have the land one, circle the land.
Right.
And they get the specific spells based on like what you want to pick, and there's a coast one.
Okay, what are those spells? Do you have it up in front
Mirror
of you?
Image, Misty Step, which is 3rd level. 5th level, Water Breathing, Water Walk. 7th, Control Water, Freedom of Movement. And 9th is Druid level 9th, not 9th level spell.
I assumed, yeah.
Yeah, Conjure, Elemental, and Scrying.
that honestly feels like phoning it into me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. That's pretty mediocre.
Yeah. You're right. There's
I don't
not really
say that the Circle of the Land is a bad choice here,
No.
but it is not a great choice for this multi-class.
No, not at all. I just think a fish barbarian sounds hilarious.
Yeah, a fish barbarian would be hilarious.
Yeah, and they turn into like a sword.
a raging swordfish.
Well, it'd be nice to have the versatility. I mean, I guess
you can have that
You
happen.
totally can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what level do you get a swim speed? Do you remember? I really should have had the book open in front of me. I'm sorry. I keep asking you.
class feat-
This D&D Beyond thing is just too nice. So-
Let's see here. 4th.
4th level, that's not
Yeah,
bad
no,
at all.
it's very
so
low.
4th level, you're out in sea for whatever reason, and you just turn into a raging swordfish. That's awesome. I love the flavor of that. That's almost as good as the smiting eagle. It's up there,
It's definitely up there.
It is.
which is the paladin druid episode
That one,
Don't even try.
5.
You think?
Yep.
Okay.
that one was a really shitty starter for us, but turned out really great. This one
It starts
is
too great.
similar because it's
Yeah.
it's just great, but it started out great too. You know, I do not particularly like the druid class. I think it needs work. But
Why do you say that?
I think there's a complexity added with anybody who turns into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always going to be one of those kind of hard sells for especially new players. Any new player, I would never, ever advise that they take a class where they turn into something with a different stat block.
Yeah, that's fair.
I agree. It's a tough class. I wouldn't say it needs work. It's a tougher class.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we mentioned it before. And we played with someone. It was her first time playing, and she wanted to do a druid. And,
Right.
And we helped her build it, but you can tell she kind of struggled to just
Yeah.
make the most of it.
Yeah.
Which is I would have.
Agreed. Yeah.
I've actually never played a druid. Now that I'm just gonna put it out there and say an expert on D&D 5th edition. I should play a druid and see what we can do with it.
This is actually one thing that's been kind of frustrating about running this podcast is we keep on making these really cool character
Right.
ideas, and I keep on like returning back every Wednesday to my basic paladin, and I'm like, oh, I could do something pretty cool. But here I am just trying to
You got that sexy whip.
I don't want to talk about that, but I will talk about it. So based on our talks about Whip's Nettington, we realized that a paladin can smite through their whip. And I was like, hey, that'd actually be pretty cool. I would like to work that in on a RP level into my current character, Galatea. And Kevin took that
Don't
as
glaze over all the details.
fine. Go into the details, you pervert.
No, these are not perverted details.
Where are you going to buy a whip?
So we were in the Underdark.
Yes.
And he starts talking about how, all right, so you have this whip, and all right, how would we play it? So you have your greatsword, and then you pull out this whip to get the 10-foot smite
Reach,
and that's a little weird, but I guess you could still keep control of your greatsword in your left hand. You can't hit with it. Well, you have your whip in your right, and then you whip it and smite with it, and then you just drop it, and then you could have your greatsword again. It's like, okay, but that's a one-time use thing. So it escalated to, I could have like a bandolier of whips. I could strap whips to my body and just pull them off as needed and recollect them after the battle. So this asshole was really trying to cheese this, even though that was technically raw. So I was like, all right, it's raw. I'm not going to argue with you. But, all right, you want to explain how you ended up with your whip?
Yeah, so we're going through the a gnome society city in the Underdark.
Blingdenstone.
It is Blingdenstone.
Yes.
And it's mentioned at one point that there's a risque shop in the area. And it's kind of like, hey, you know what? That sounds interesting. Like, let's all just check it out. That sounds funny. And of course we get there, and Kevin mentions there's an entire wall of intricately designed whips. And this was something that I brought up to him that, if I'm going to make this an RP thing, it should be that my character is obsessed with the idea of whips. They sound interesting. But of course they need to be in a sex shop, right? You fucking dick. So that was his punishment towards me for wanting to do something that's a little bit
traditional lawful good.
Right.
Paladin.
Very much so. So I had to play it off. Or I continue to, because even in real life it was mildly embarrassing. But play it off as very bashful and like, I swear this isn't a sex thing.
And now you have a whip on you that
Can have it's god damn it. I just remembered. It has very phallic gnome imagery on the handle.
it has two gnomes boning embroidered into the handle.
Phallic gnome imagery. Actually, I regret calling this podcast Monsters and Multiclass when we could have gone with phallic gnome imagery. I've seen a lot of bad stuff on the internet, so I really can visualize this whip better than I think a lot of people can. So it makes my session just worse.
Right. So I may be dropping that idea entirely if every time I want to grab a new whip, it has to be at a sex shop. Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
There's like a DM fiat on Whips Nettington. Whips Nettington at this point has become more of a hero than a character.
Yeah.
The idea of using whips and nets is just, it transcends boundaries. It's like the Nilbog of class composition. Everyone's possessed eventually by the desire to use whips and nets.
I loved your character's reaction in character with it. So you get this, and Jared's character was asking Will's, who was a forge cleric, you could probably fashion a metal cover for this handle that fits, right? It's like, oh no, I would never cover up such great craftsmanship.
Yeah, RP wise, it sounded like it looked great.
It was. It is. Somebody's very dedicated to the craft of making sexy, kinky whips.
No forge cleric would ever spit on the work of another artisan, But
So
irregardless,
what circle are we thinking for Druid?
Any of them? Well,
Really
no. So Circle of the Moon, which is the one that buffs the wild shape, that's the obvious one.
Right. That's
because
probably
that
the best.
works so well with Barbarian, since all the Barbarian stuff, reckless attacks and resistances and raging, works with that.
I also think that Circle of the Shepherd's pretty nice.
I like the idea of you summon a herd of 8 bears and then you turn into a bear yourself.
Exactly. And they also get those really nice auras. And by really nice, I mean pretty all right. They're nothing super special. I don't have the exact stats memorized.
it is a big loss, though, when you do not take the circle that benefits you transforming.
All right. It's true. But if we're just talking about turning into a bear and then you've got resistances on top of it, it makes the Moon Druid feel less necessary. A lot of times when I look at the Druid, I just think, if you're going to be wild shaping at all, then the Circle of the Moon is going to be your best bet because it gives you so many more benefits to going into this wild shape. But Circle of the Shepherd is giving you some nice auras that kind of buff your party. And then your barbarian resistances make it a lot less difficult to just handle that in general. But at the same time, with the Moon Druid, you can rage and turn into your wild shape in one turn, which is just too nice. You just have one turn of setup instead of two.
Right. If that's what you're looking to do, be a raging bear or wolf or eagle or whatever, you would have to go that route. Just because I'm looking at it, if you don't go Circle of the Moon, by 8th level, you could turn into a challenge rating 1 creature. And it's really, really limited.
And that's
at 2nd level, 1/4. At 4th level, 1/2. And that's it. You never go above 1st level, and you only get to that at 8th.
That's kind of where I'm saying, like, the Druid, like, it is a hard sell for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You get to be a shitty animal. Like, you're a
unless
full
you go
caster.
Circle of the Moon.
Unless you go Circle of the Moon. Circle of the Blast, essentially, it's not a great class, and it's hard to play.
Yeah, and one of the issues with Circle of the Shepherd is that it the 6th level starts to fall off since you can't conjure and rage. You have to conjure beforehand, then rage, then turn into your wild shape. It's just a lot of stuff before you go through it all.
And you don't have to be Circle of the Shepherd to conjure.
You don't.
Bears.
No, it's just the best way
to
conjure, because they get temp HP in addition to your level, I think, your druid level.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty
Something
good.
like that. I guess I could pull it up, but it's not important.
It's not.
Something like that. Their summons are better.
I wrote down very briefly, I only have 2 lines about this, so it's not going to go far, a fairy barbarian, which I'm imagining the Rock in the Tooth Fairy, which I never watched, but I know is a movie.
How are you going to become a fairy?
Circle of the Dreams, or Circle of Dreams. It's a druid one.
That's one of the new ones, correct?
Yes, it's also in
Xanathars,
Xanthars.
yeah.
Xanathars. I literally wrote down, it sounds funny at least. At 10th level, you can teleport. But I have no way flavor-wise to work in the Barbarian Rage. A lot of it is about Serenity. So it kind of falls into, like when we talked about Monk Barbarian, where they're very counteracting points. Mm-hmm. I just like the idea of a Barbarian teleporting around the battlefield and sprinkling fairy dust.
I'm still not getting where does the fairy come from?
Circle of the Dreams. I don't know. Again, I'm honestly
you can't play as a fairy.
No, I literally am just imagining the Rock in the Tooth Fairy.
But this is not
You
a
didn't even
character
watch that movie.
No, you don't
anybody
need to.
can build.
No, it is to an extent. I say the fairy aspect is just like how you treat your character.
So can you actually become a fae creature?
No.
All right.
No,
So-
you're literally just prancing around. That's what I mean by fairy.
All right. I can see why that's
Okay.
stupid and not worth talking about. But
Nope.
We'll talk about it anyways.
In the sense of saying the Circle of the Dreams about tranquility and all that, and it's against the rage, it could be you realize you're flawed and you have this anger, so you let it out in short, controlled bursts. So the rest of the time you're very calm and even keeled.
There we go. See, that's
All right.
something. I can work with that. Yeah. Again, I literally wrote down, sounds funny. So I'm not expecting this to be some intricate design. I just like the fact that you can teleport around. That's literally it, mechanically speaking.
So I have
Shrug.
another detailed idea. So the first one will start as a druid. Now this one will start as a barbarian.
All right.
You could start as the classic stereotypical barbarian. You're in a tribe out in the wilderness, surviving. You're a warrior for them. You harness your anger. It's how everyone trains. Nothing unique there for the barbarian. At some point, your tribe is attacked by a rival tribe, evil creatures, whatever, and you lose. Your tribe is destroyed. They're decimated. You manage to survive. Try and make it on your own out in the wilderness and find that's very difficult. It was the community sense keeping you alive. So you find your way to a city or a village. Some nice family takes you in and they care for you and you help out and around the farm or whatever. And you kind of live the simple life for a little bit as they help you adapt to city life. But you still have that longing for the wilderness. So you pick up the adventuring life. That's where you come in at level 1 as this character.
Okay.
So you're kind of this creature of both worlds, the wilderness and the city, and you go out adventuring to try and to satisfy, go have an outlet for that rage you've been trained to harness your entire life, and to be able to go out in the wilderness and to get away from the city. At some point in one of these adventures, you were almost killed. Something goes wrong. This could very much be an event that you work out with your DM, or it could be part of a backstory based on what level you come in. And you essentially lose again. You're almost killed, but it seems nature itself almost seems to save you. Some enemy is about to strike the killing blow, and a bear comes out of nowhere and mauls the sky and leaves you alone and lets you get away. Or you're left for dead, and this river swells up and gently floats you downstream to safety. And it's something like that. And while you're unconscious like this, you have a vision with. You could be really on the nose and say literally it's Mother Nature, it's some old lady, or a spirit of the forest, or the goddess of nature, whatever, however you want to do it, who is worried that the balance between the civilized world and the natural world is falling out of whack. The civilized world is growing too quick, and nature needs a spokesperson, needs a champion. And because you are this skilled warrior who's a creature of both worlds, you are chosen. And they bestow these druid powers upon you, and you wake up with these new powers. And now you kind of have this new task you need to figure out, try and get used to your druid powers, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really intricate backstory. I guess it kind of blows my fairy barbarian out of the water.
But this goes back to the fact that this class combination synergizes so well.
Right.
A druid is essentially one very angry incident from being a barbarian.
Yeah.
And a barbarian is one very introspective moment from being a druid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, totally. So that's a very good idea. I like that a lot. I feel like there's basically what that brings to light is the fact that you can make a lot of different combinations of this. It's a very open-ended RP class.
Mechanically speaking, we should also mention that there's not a huge amount of stuff that they require. A druid is not an armored warrior who's specialized in weapons, and neither is a barbarian.
No.
They're both, generally speaking, unarmored creatures with very little focus on the weapons they use. It's all about that rage. It's all about that damage that they get from being mad. We can completely ignore the fact that they are a druid or a barbarian for the fact that they just need to smash something with a log.
Right, yeah.
The only time where there comes conflict is the fact that you can't cast spells while you're raging. And you've got a full spellcaster that can't cast spells for most of its life. Because, it's kind of expected you're going to be raging most of the time. I've never really had a fight with a barbarian that didn't rage, 3 out of every 4 combats.
Right.
So, when you're not raging, you still have those spells. That's kind of nice. It just offers a little bit more versatility. Maybe you're taking more or less combat-focused spells, so that when you're out of combat, you've got a lot of utility. Druids offer a bunch of that. But this does fit a nature campaign a lot better than any other campaign, which is honestly one of the limiting factors in my opinion. I don't think this character would make a lot of sense in Out of the Abyss, one of the ones we're playing right now.
It would be hard to develop it in the sense we've been talking about, but if they were already an established character, it's they got captured by drow slavers and now they have to deal with this.
Right. I mean, that's
the Underdark is still nature. It's still the wild.
You are losing out on a lot of potential, though, because the fact that somebody loves nature is it's inconsequential in a non-adversarial environment. The Underdark will always win when it comes to industrialization.
Right.
There's no struggle there. So you are kind of existing in a life that does not have a struggle for you morally.
True.
Unless the smog is killing the mushroom people.
They aren't. No. That's just that's one of the fun things of climate change. If everything goes to shit and all the bees die, you know who's going to take over? The mushrooms. Mushrooms do not care. That's the issue with the Underdark, is that any kind of ecological struggle you engage in is pointless because the Underdark wins.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, fitting in with, I just don't think this would be great in that campaign,
Yeah.
which isn't a problem. I mean,
Right.
a lot of the characters we bring up aren't great
obviously.
in every single campaign, but this one fits much better in a open world kind of roaming the countryside type deal.
Right.
If I almost feel like they lose something if the focus of the campaign doesn't have anything to do with nature.
Well, even if the focus isn't there, the overworld is at war with nature, and they're kind of winning.
Okay.
That's how our world works. That's how their world works.
Right.
Civilization encroaches on nature. In the Underdark, totally thrown out the window because
Right.
every civilization you establish will always be on like an even footing with the nature that's coming in around them. So yeah, no, it's one of those things that really benefits itself from an open world campaign. And you cannot do this with like the structured D&D campaigns that currently exist.
No, I mean maybe Horde of the Dragon Queen, but that's
Even the Horde of the Dragon Queen, that's not. It's hard to justify your own personal feelings.
right.
Your
And
characters.
We've discussed it before.
Right.
I don't know if it was on air here or not,
was.
but yeah, the concept of in these big world threatening epic adventures, it's that stuff overrides the personal wants and needs of any character you play.
Yep.
And it kind of stunts that growth.
Yep. Definitely. So it would be like something that you just have to keep on bringing up randomly,
Yeah.
where it's like
Yeah.
you go into a village and they talk about like, oh, we've been attacked by cultists recently, and you're like, but how do they feel about nature? What? Fuck
What are
off.
their logging policies?
Yeah.
This is one of those characters that really just thrives if it gets its own kind of thing going. If you have a campaign that really benefits it, it's great.
Right.
But, outside of that, it's just mechanically decent.
Right. Which then brings up the idea of an entire party of barbarians, druids, and multiclass barbarians and druids, maybe rangers as well, just like an eco-warrior campaign, which could be pretty fun, actually.
It could be, yeah.
Where just everybody kind of focuses in on the idea of like, we're here to let nature prevail. We're going to dismantle society. It might not even be a good campaign, but that could be pretty fun. I'd play in that.
I would, yeah.
Or we just like go around and just destroy cities.
I'm always down for deep ecology.
Yeah. Any other like class synergy? I feel like
a lot of the stuff just does not work. Like the mushroom style druid that was recently released in the
very
Ravenica
recently. Yep.
it benefits from itself. It's not a good synergizer for this. The best synergizer is turning into a bear and raging.
Yeah.
Yep. Or I like at level 10 of Circle of the Moon, you could turn into elementals.
Yep.
Air, earth, fire, water elementals. And raging is those. And
kinda
they're
ridiculous.
big, they're large. Like earth elementals have something like 170 health.
Yeah, that really, like, honestly, if you do this kind of thing, your DM might hate you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, how much hit points do I have with my PCs? You've got 50, you've got 75, you've got 49, you've got effectively 290. What the hell, man? You're like this just monster earth tank.
Right. I mean, it does get kind of monstrous. That's why I'm saying like almost a campaign centered around characters like this might be better, because otherwise you're probably going to outshine a lot of people. Again, my only issue is this comes up with you can't cast a ton of spells. You're a full spellcaster that's not going to get a bunch of utility out of that. So Barbarian seems like the way to go. Do you think they scale linearly, both of them? I can't think of a reason to
The
pick one
answer
or the
is
other.
yes and no,
Yeah,
in
right.
my opinion.
Depends on what you're going for.
Yeah, barbarians do scale linearly for damage reasons.
Right.
But
Especially
The rage and how often they can rage.
Exactly. And
Circle of the Moon, or really just the wild shape scales based on the wizard level. Not druid level.
you keep doing that.
No,
why would a druid have wizard level?
Well, that'll come up in episode 14. I don't know when it's going to come up. It's,
know.
it's all
That's going to be a regrettable fucking
wizard
podcast.
druid?
I hate that.
It'll
I hate
come
that
up at some
already.
point.
It's going to come up and I hate it. But no, you're right. It's like they do scale, but once you reach a certain point, it doesn't matter for a lot of these classes.
Right.
Barbarians do not get anything game-changing. They just kind of, middle their way through absurd amounts of damage.
Is brutal critical 9? Level 9?
Brutal critical is actually pretty low.
I think it's 9.
No, that's high level, yeah.
Regardless, like a lot of the things that barbarians
9,
get are just like good.
Yeah.
They don't have anything that I would consider to be like just thrown away. So totally up to you how many levels you want to take in each. I think you could do one and then the other. Literally every
your
time.
best bet, in my opinion, is going to be topping Druid levels off on your Barbarian. Because the Barbarian's never going to not be useful. Once you get what you want from the Druid, you're just a very scary bear.
What happens
Yeah,
at level
but-
10 with Barbarian?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
Nothing happens.
All right. Well, then, level 10, you're saying you get the elementals thing with Circle of the Moon.
You get a path feature. I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
looking at the general.
Oh,
There's
okay.
nothing there.
Well,
so
then-
it's really varied.
It's for Totem of the Bear or whatever, Totem Warrior. It's basically nothing. I don't like any of the level 10 totem features. I don't dislike them. They're
Actually, you
pretty
get
mediocre.
Spirit Walker,
Oh.
which is garbage.
You could cast Commune with Nature, but as a ritual.
Yeah.
It's not. No,
So
it's
nothing really great
garbage.
there. But if you finish off, like let's say you're getting to level 20 and you take that 10th level in Druid, we're talking your capstone basically being turning into an elemental with the ability to rage, take half damage to absolutely everything besides psychic damage.
Right.
That's a better capstone than a lot of classes.
Yeah, I say that would be beneficial probably all the way up to 20.
Right.
The only reason I would say it's you were saying go as high as you want in Barbarian and only get a little bit in Druid is if you're going the Wild Shape route, that's really, really limiting because that is on Druid level.
Yes.
So you could be a level 15 character who can only Wild Shape into challenge rating 1 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at level 2, that's what it is. You can challenge rating 1.
Right. So Circle
That's
of the
limited.
Moon. just
So if you do
keeps-
do the half and half, I think half and half Barbarian Druid is like just kind of an offensively difficult to kill character.
Yeah, just do one then the other and just
Yep, keep on layering it. I feel like every time we talk about Druid, we land on Circle of the Moon is probably the best.
I think we've only talked about it once before.
For multi-classing,
For multi-classing, yes.
The reality is that feature buffing itself is so much better than other things.
Right.
Yeah. And any other thoughts on this?
No, I think
Before we
it
move on
sounds
to
fun
Monster of the
though.
Week?
I really do like
for
this
sure.
class idea. We've had a couple good ones in a row. It feels nice.
Yeah, no, I support this character. I would actually roll this character.
Oh, sweet.
This is the first time I've ever said that.
Yeah, honestly, you're moving towards actually embracing multi-classes just a little.
I mean, next one we roll is probably going to be so garbage I'm going to kill myself. But
That's extreme. All right.
Wizard fucking Druid. I'm now going to have
What is
nightmares.
the next one?
The next one is well,
I already.
listen to the end of the episode to find out what the next class build will be.
Sorcerer Monk. Why being a dick?
Oh, it's Sorcerer Monk. All right, Sorcerer Monk's not that.
Yeah, Sorcerer Monk could be fun. I got ideas for that.
Same
But
here.
Wizard Druid is going to keep me up at night.
All right, let's move on to the monster of the week.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's hear it.
Sorry, just had a frog in my throat. Wait, no, that's the Froghemoth, our monster of the week. An amphibious predator, this humongous frog beast weighs in at a challenge rating of 10 with 184 HP. There is no explanation of where they come from, but one thing is known: where there's a Froghemoth, there will be Bullymongs. When a Bullymong tribe finds these creatures, they lure them into their dens with food offerings to attempt to satiate the monster's voracious appetite. Here, they will bow down to their new god and do anything they can to please it, even if it means sacrificing a few of their own. So, let's get into it.
Wow. You really.
I know, I went all out for
Yeah,
that one.
down.
All right. But
Froghemoth.
yes.
It's a fun one, honestly. As I mentioned, they've got this fun flavor where if a Bullymong tribe finds a
What are
Froghemoth,
you saying?
what do you mean?
Bully what?
Bullymong.
Bullywug.
Bullywog.
Bullywog.
Bullymongs are from Borderlands.
Shit.
This is what happens when you spend over 100 hours in that terrible game.
Quite literally over 400.
It-
Should we start over?
No.
You sure?
WUGS, Bullywugs.
Bullywogs.
I totally.
Yes.
They're the frog monsters of this game, not bullymongs.
Bullymongs are totally the things in Borderlands.
They
oh
are
my
totally.
god.
Borderlands 2, if anybody's wondering.
Such a good game.
It's not great. So yeah, let's hear it.
Bullywongs. Bullywogs?
Bullywogs.
Bullymongs.
Oh man, this is never gonna go well.
No, it's not.
All right.
Yeah, so the frog people, right? Frog people.
Yes.
When they find one of these Froghemoths, they just like lure it into a cave of some sort and just try and appease it as much as they can, which I love because that brings in some fantastic arc ideas. For example, you can just be wandering around into a swamp type area and come across this. Makes for a pretty good session, to be honest, if whatever reason that your characters are in there. And you're going through, you're finding these bullywogs, and maybe they lure you in through less than no combat. They lure you in without combat, just try and get you into the area and fight this Froghemoth because it's trying to eat you. But above all, this thing just has a very fun combat. I feel like it has a lot of abilities that can screw your PCs over.
It's one of the things that's pretty present in any kind of monster is the swallow mechanic.
Right.
Getting eaten by a monster is a bad thing. This is one of the lower challenge rating enemies that can swallow your PCs. And with stuff that can hold 2, that's extremely obnoxious,
right.
Especially for someone this low challenge rating. You got to do 20 damage in a turn just to get thrown up. This is one of those things. If you have an annoying PC, just eat them. Just swallow them up. You got a barbarian druid in your party, just gobble them down.
So if we're saying level 10, which is what this Froghemoth is, or I'm sorry, challenge rating 10, that's saying that for a party of level 10s, it's a medium encounter. You'll probably be level 7 or 8 if you're throwing it out at them. You think it's really hard to do 20 damage in one turn?
No, but it is a gate that you have to pass.
Okay.
It's one of those things that you might not necessarily pull off in the first turn. You might not necessarily pull it off in the second turn. And being swallowed by the bullywog, it's like ultra grapple.
Right.
And this is a fun mechanic for a DM to just be like, you know what, you're out of combat. You've been screwing up stuff because you're a barbarian druid or something.
Right.
Now you're on the bullywog stomach.
Yeah.
Right.
And you are blinded and restrained, so disadvantage on any attack and any
Right.
spell that requires sight you can't cast, which is a lot of them.
That's a lot, actually.
You cannot fireball your way out of this.
Yep, that's pretty good. Though you'd probably be fireballing yourself in that scenario. But, I mean,
Exactly.
it's something to get out of it, right? But that you can't do. It does have multi-attack. Of course, that's something that's challenge rating 10. So it makes 3 attacks, 2 with its tentacles, 1 with its tongue, or its bite. The bite is the one that allows you to swallow. So that's just devastating. I mean, we're saying that the tentacles, when they hit, they automatically grapple. And it's a DC 16 to escape. Difficult enough.
Hard, not too impassable.
No.
But it's a challenge,
Right, exactly. I mean, that once you get over 15, it starts to become something to actually think about. So it really has a lot of battlefield control by only being one creature. Say the tentacles
Right.
allow it to actually reach out with a reach of 20 feet, which is pretty good.
It can hit anything.
Right. So you're not one of these singular creatures that's just bogged down by needing to move around or maybe getting stuffed up by that paladin who's just getting in your face and you can't take care of. The paladin gets in your face, you just bite him. You just take care of
Right.
him. Goodbye,
Or
paladin.
you tentacle it for 3d8 plus 6 damage with a plus 10 to hit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you bite it while it's grappled.
Right. So it can also grapple 4 characters at once. That's just with its tentacles. It says
Right.
it has 4 tentacles, and that's excluding the fact that it's going to try and bite and swallow, which does a ton of damage. 3d10 plus 6 piercing damage, and if it's swallowed, it's 3d6 acid damage at the start of each of the Froghemoth's turns.
Yeah. And
So you're just ripping through them. If you've got 2 people swallowed, that's 66 worth of damage just from starting its own turn.
yeah. And in the swallow just happens if bite hits. That's it. There's no additional save.
Yep.
The bite's a plus 10 to hit and reach 5 feet. If it hits and you're medium or smaller, you're swallowed.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's scary.
This is actually, like, the swallow mechanic especially is a very good way to bring out the best in players that might not participate in combat as enthusiastically as some others. If you've got a paladin, they're probably going to be the showboater. They're going to be doing this damage. If you put the paladin in the Froghemoth's stomach, you really do throw it on the rest of the party to be like, hey, we got to step up.
Yeah.
We don't have that smite damage anymore,
Right, it's true.
And that's a great opportunity. Just kind of build what your characters are doing.
One thing on top of this difficulty of getting out by doing 20 damage, it has to beat a DC 20 Constitution save, which sounds really terrible until you realize that it has a plus 9 to Constitution. So that's saying it has to roll an 11 or lower, or I'm sorry, a 10 or lower to fail this.
To not throw you up.
To not throw you up.
Right,
So it's
so-
got a really good chance of holding you down. 50-50, basically.
Yeah. And then the tongue attack, which is, it could do in place of its bite for a multi-attack. It's another 20-foot range. The target makes a DC 18 strength saving throw or be pulled to within 5 feet of the Froghemoth, who could then make a bite attack as a bonus action.
Oof. So good.
Yeah.
So then, you're doing this. The tongue is really better than the bite in almost any scenario, because you can use 2 of the tentacles, do the tongue, bonus action, bite. That's 4 attacks. That's a lot of damage, even towards these higher challenge rating creatures or PCs that will be fighting it. It's got pretty good resistances, where it's resistant to fire and lightning damage. Fire is going to be your most common type of damage in general.
Right.
It does have something interesting, though. Even though it's resistant to lightning damage, if the Froghemoth takes lightning damage, it suffers several effects until the end of its next turn. Its speed is halved and takes a -2 penalty to AC and dexterity saving throws, can't use reactions, or multi-attack. I mean, lightning damage does...
It completely fucks it up.
Yeah.
That's a weird one, especially because it's resistant to lightning, but it has all these terrible effects.
Exactly. Where did that come from? I don't
know.
Understand the
Someone at
combination
Wizards at the Coast probably tased a frog once. I don't know.
we should work that into a monster.
But the unfortunate thing is things like that are very cool, that can very much level an encounter for party of PCs. They don't come up a lot, because if you do know this, you have to throw it in the back of your mind.
Right.
If you don't know this, you'll probably never find it out.
Unless you are a storm sorcerer. I'm serious. Like,
I mean,
something
if you're
like
a
that.
storm sorcerer, yeah,
Right.
The Froghemoth will be a fun encounter,
Right.
for him to just ruin this guy.
Exactly. So like that's just something you have to think about as a DM. If you've got somebody who mainly casts lightning damage, which is specific but is a thing. I mean, people might use is it called lightning instead of firebolt? Just the level 3 spell.
I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, so you use that most commonly instead of fireball. Great. So this is going to be a really easy encounter for you. Lowering that AC, making it so it can only do an action or a bonus action, removing its multi-attack. I mean, that's just killer. It's too much.
Right. Actually, it's kind of the key to beating it. Just with how all these different attacks and the swallowing stack together. If you're under level 10, I don't know if a party of 4s would really do well against it.
They'd have a hard time, that's for sure.
So that's kind of like the key. That's solving the puzzle. You have to find different ways to do shock damage to it.
Right. Which, I mean, can be simple once you figure it out. You do Shocking Grasp, and
Yeah, but I mean, that's a melee range cantrip.
which you're going to be in melee range. Honestly,
Yeah, and then they just swallow the guy doing shocking grasp.
and then you can Shocking Grasp inside it.
Yeah, if
Can
you
you?
do figure
Do
it
you
out,
have to be able to see?
I don't know the
I think at
components.
touch range, I feel like you do not need to see them.
You might need to, because that's actually something that's come up. I was reading through Jeremy Crawford's tweets, as I do, and he was mentioning that if you are blinded, you cannot cast a touch spell on yourself if it requires a visual component. Or what's the visual one?
A creature you could see.
Yeah, if it says that at all, a creature you can see, then you can't cast it on yourself if you're blinded. Which is kind of silly to an extent, but we're just assuming magic.
No, Shocking Grasp does not say anything about seeing. It's a melee spell attack.
Cool. So it's not going to...
You would do it at disadvantage.
Just fine.
Because you're in his stomach, but at the same time, like, you know...
I feel weird about
that. Makes sense. He's like, you're zapping through your hand.
Right.
It's going to be hard not to touch the Froghemoth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But it really, this is one of those monsters that is very good for a low-level party to add challenge to something. And Volo's, it's hit or miss, but we have a lot of fleshed out stuff. If you have a bullywog kind of situation, this is a great big bad evil guy.
Yeah,
And then so much better than the tribesmen of frog people that might throw spears at you. This is the boss you want for a frog campaign.
Right. And you have it with a bunch of bullywogs.
Yeah, of course.
As well. Yeah, the smaller add-ons,
Yeah, you could definitely do it where it's like a level 10 party facing the Froghemoth and a slew of bullywogs. And I think that would be a very, very good final combat to an arc or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
The lead up to that can go a couple of ways, and you have the usual very simple mechanic of you go into a village, they're being harassed by bullywogs, blah blah blah. You go and find them. It's a Froghemoth, haha. But I
really love that plot hook.
It's so easy.
I think you talk about it every episode.
Exactly.
You go to a village, they're being harassed by X.
How many villages are like generally at some kind of creature's whim? You know.
What I'm saying is that's the very simple way of throwing this in. Like,
right.
You know, if you have zero creativity like myself, then you could just throw that in and say, yeah.
When you write your campaigns, when you're supposed to be working.
Oh. But no, like in a more realistic sense is you're going to be walking through a swamp for something bigger and then stumble across this type of thing. That's how you'd normally stumble across the Froghemoth is usually they just hang out in a swamp. And that could be a random encounter for a higher level party if you just wanted to be against one thing, which would be a very memorable one-off encounter. You're walking through a swamp, boom, Froghemoth comes up. It might even get a surprise round on you, which is scary as hell with something this powerful.
Yeah.
Tentacles you out, bonus action to tongue you and swallow you. Or not even a bonus action, just continue that part. You're going to be dropping somebody to half health right away and forcing everybody to do that huge amount of damage. And that's from inside it. It has to be the 20 damage from inside it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like somebody outside can do 20 damage. That's it's killer.
Yeah. Also, I think it might have been inspired by Star Wars and the trash compactor. The monster in there.
Yeah.
Like it even talks about it has that eye stalk that's the only thing that sticks above the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big tentacles that reach out and grab someone, pull them under. It feels very reminiscent of that.
The real question is why a monster would be able to live in a trash compactor.
I thought it was the trash compactor.
No. The trash compactor squishes people.
Oh.
That was like a big plot point.
Maybe the walls don't go down all the way in the water, and so it dives down.
That seems like a design flaw to me.
I'm not going to disagree.
Next time on Monsters and Trash Compactors, we discuss the efficiencies of trash compactors. But
with monsters in them.
So, I mean, can you think of other ways that you're going to run into a bullywog Froghemoth mix here?
It's one of those very, very esoteric kind of things that you're not going to run into a Froghemoth in a castle.
No.
This is a great swamp monster for somebody who doesn't want to subject their entire party to black dragons.
Right,
yeah.
You know, black dragons, as fun as they are encounter ruiners if you do not have the level to take care of them.
Right.
But this is something that's like, oh, what is a threat in the swamp? An alligator? How about a Froghemoth?
Yeah, I agree with that. Say it makes for an interesting session. I just feel like it's very singular. That's my only issue. Well, I can think of only two reasons. Either you're just fighting it alone, or you stumble across it in a swamp, have to fight some bullywogs with it. But those are the only two I can think of. Nothing that really creates like it's not a campaign builder.
No.
Flat out.
Definitely
It's
not.
going to be a session. It might be a singular encounter.
Yep. Which is fine.
Yeah, totally. Because I
Yeah.
think it's very memorable. I've actually been eyeing up the miniature for it. It's it's huge. It is a huge monstrosity.
Yeah.
It's really good mini though. So if I want to spend $20, I might buy that.
We have no huge minis.
No, we don't.
We always have to
Do
just
we
kind
not?
of no the large.
Wow.
Yet the huge ones you have to buy specially on their own, and they're expensive.
Worth it.
Kevin.
Keep dropping the pen. Sorry.
All right, but I think the Froghemoth is good for lower level parties that are looking for a challenge in a swamp.
What do you mean by lower level?
Anything under 10.
Okay, but like minimum of like what, 7?
Probably 7.
Okay,
You know,
I couldn't imagine.
On its own, if you have a party really spec'd for this guy, you could probably do it at 5. But
Yeah,
that's taking in the lightning susceptibility to it. you
right.
know. It is also a really good character to fuck with your high level PCs that are walking through a swamp. You're
Yeah.
level 15. A Froghemoth still is not going to be an easy fight.
No.
It's a good way to beat people down and really ruin their day.
So you could even do it as a random encounter when you're level 15 and you just have a Froghemoth pop out of the swamp, and then once they're all tied up by the tentacles, you just get like 10 bullywogs come out from the the outskirts of the battle area and just and just stab into them as well, or just ribbit. They just ribbit. Makes more sense. That could be fun. I say it's just it's a quick one, but I really like it, and I think it's so cool.
Yeah, mechanically speaking, it looks fun to play as a DM.
Right.
There's
That's
so much you can do.
what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I just want to DM it. I want to eat my characters. I also like that it has +5 to stealth as one of its skills, which is a small thing, but just so that you can reasonably have your players walking and not notice it. So you can have that surprise round where, maybe 1 or 2 people who are highly perceptive do notice it, and the 3 characters who are not highly perceptive get tentacled from the start.
But yeah, that's like the core of the perception stealth thing, surprise rounds. A lot of DMs just kind of throw them at the party and do not care. It's like, oh, you didn't notice this? You just wanted advantage as a DM.
Yeah.
Well, you really got to think yourself into situations where the Froghemoth probably would surprise the party.
Right, exactly.
Nobody expects the elephant-sized frog in the river.
I was just pulling up pictures of the Froghemoth mini. It is really cool.
Right. I would totally
Post a picture of it on Twitter at some point.
Okay.
Watches.
But yeah, I like the design. I like the mechanics. I like everything about the Froghemoth. I even like the name.
Yeah,
Even
it's
though
great.
it really is pretty fucking lazy.
It's a behemoth.
It's like a
but
behemoth,
It's a frog.
but it's a frog.
Froghemoth.
Froghemoth. All right.
Why try harder? Not everything can be the flail snail.
Not everything can be the flail snail.
All right. Any other thoughts?
No?
No, I love it. Use
right.
it every time.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Ribbit.
Wow. I'm the
bad.
only one who can do this. All right.
Ribbit.
Ribbit.
That's pretty bad.
Ribbit. Ribbit.
Oh,
No.
Jesus. You're
That's
embarrassing
bad.
yourself.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm gonna-
hey, I got it. It's a mouth shaped thing.
Ribbit.
No, you're so fucking low. I'm the Matt Mercer.
Damn
of this
it!
party.
I had it for like 2 seconds.
You're all talentless. Nobody.
I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I can't make the sounds of a frog.
Well, you're not going to play a Froghemoth.
You're never going to attract a frog wife.
All right, and now that's the actual episode.
Yep.
Next week on Monsters and Multiclass.
We're going to be taking a look at the Monk Sorcerer multi-class and the entirety of the Gnolls. They range across the Monster Manual and Volo's Guide to Monsters. So make sure to tune in.